Hey guys, today I want to go over continental drift and plate tectonics. As always, you can follow along with your notes here, as well as the PowerPoint that we go over in class. Alright, starting out here. So, Wagner's continental drift hypothesis stated that the continents had once been joined to form a single supercontinent. Wagner proposed that the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart about 200 million years ago and form the present land masses that we have today. So here's some evidence about that supports the continental drift theory. Let me make this a little bit smaller so that you can see everything on the sheet here. Move back down. Evidence number one is matching fossils. So the fossil evidence for continental drift includes several fossil organisms that are found on different land masses. And they kind of match here. So we can find fossils from different organisms, or from the same organism in different places around the world. Okay, so rock types and structures. Rock evidence for continental drift exists in the form of several mountain belts at the end of one coastline, only to reappear in a landmass across the ocean. So you can see the Appalachian Mountains here, as well as these mountains here, and some other ones along the area as well. Okay, ancient climates, glacial tilt and glacial striations, meaning that we can see evidences from the same glaciers that match up on different land masses here. And the puzzle fit theory, meaning that they all kind of seem to fit together here. So Wagner could not provide an explanation of exactly what made the continents move, but news and technology led to findings which then led to a new theory that we now subscribe to called plate tectonics. So there's several evidences for plate tectonics. One is paleomagnetism, so the natural remnant of magnetism in rock bodies. And this is a permanent magnetization acquired by rocks that can be used to determine the location of the magnetic poles at the time the rock became magnetized. So all things can become, or most metallic objects can become magnetized, and this paleomagnetism is a result of Earth's magnetic field polarizing these rocks. So a normal polarity when magnetism is at the poles here, and a reverse polarity when the opposite magnetism is shown in the field. So basically where north is here, and then can flip to where north is here. And that goes there. So the discovery of strips of alternating polarity which lie as mirror images across the ocean floor ridges is among the strongest evidence of something called seafloor spreading, meaning that the ocean is splitting apart. We can see over time that the polarities change as the Earth spreads out. We can see earthquake patterns. So scientists found a close link between deep focus earthquakes and ocean trenches. And the absence of deep focus earthquakes along the ocean ridge system was shown to be consistent with the new theory here. You can see all of the earthquake patterns kind of seem similar. Ocean drilling. So the data that came on ages of seafloor sediment confirmed what seafloor setting and the hypothesis predicted. Okay. As we can see, some more evidence for seafloor spreading. The youngest oceanic crust is at the ridge, and the oldest oceanic crust is at the continental margin. So here we find the youngest, while here we find the oldest. Again, young, and old. And hotspots, the concentration of heat in the mantle capable of producing magma, which rises to the Earth's surface. The Pacific plate moving over a hotspot produce the Hawaiian island chains. So this hotspot, and as the plate moves over it, new land masses form. And hotspot evidence supports that the plates move over Earth's surface. Let's talk about some of the causes of plate motion here. So scientists generally agree that convection moving or occurring in the mantle is the basic driving force for plate movement. Convection flow is the motion of matter resulting from changes in temperature. So the unequal distribution of heat within the Earth causes this thermal convection in the mantle and ultimately drives plate motion. And I showed you guys an example of convection currents, and we talked about convection currents in the previous unit. So what makes the plates move? Convection currents. Okay, so as hot magma rises, it gets pushed up and pushes colder magma down, and then those are closest to the heating source now, and they heat up and cause it to rise as well. And it's an ever-ending cycle. Think boiling water here. That was the example that I gave in Unit 2. Sorry, let me move up here so you can see. So we have ridge push here, which is a mechanism for plate motion and plate tectonics. Because of mid-ocean ridges lie at higher elevations than the rest of the ocean floor, gravity causes the ridge to push the lithosphere out from each other. We also have slab pull, which is the plate motion due to higher densities. Basically, this plate pulls the other plate along with it. An isostasy is the up and down movement of the crust, and is the concept of gradual floating crust over gravitational balance. Think about a series of wooden blocks here at different heights in floating water as they move across and push each other down. Okay, I'm going to keep moving here. We've already talked about the magnetic field of Earth, but just to recap it here, Earth's outer core is made of a liquid metallic iron that generates Earth's magnetic field as it rotates and swirls. All right, so we're getting to the different areas of the inner Earth here. So Earth's inner core is made up of solid iron and nickel, similar to metallic meteorites. And it's solid because of all the pressure of Earth pushing down into that center point. It raises the melting point of these metals. So the inner core is a sphere with a radius of about 1,216 kilometers, behaves like a solid because it is, and composed generally of an iron-nickel alloy. Okay, the outer core is made of a liquid metallic iron that generates the magnetic field. It is liquid because of the immense heat of the inner core. That pressure causes the heat to rise as well. So the outer core is a liquid layer. It's about 2,270 kilometers thick, and is a convective flow of metallic iron that generates the magnetic field. Okay, the lower mantle is from about 660 to about 660 to about 2,900 kilometers. It is a more rigid layer. The rocks are very, very hot and capable of gradual flow. And the mantle makes up about 82% of Earth's volume and is a slightly less dense version of the inner core. Okay, the upper mantle and asthenosphere. So beneath the lithosphere has a depth to about 660 kilometers and is a soft, weak layer that can easily be deformed. Then we have the lithosphere, which is the crust and uppermost mantle. It's about 100 kilometers thick. It is cool, rigid, and solid. And according to plate tectonic theory, the uppermost mantle along with the overlying crust behaves as a solid, rigid layer. This layer is known as the lithosphere. So a plate is one of numerous rigid sections of the lithosphere that move as a unit over the material of the asthenosphere. Moving on here. So talking about lithospheric crust now, we have continental crust, which is the upper mantle, or upper crust is composed mostly of granitic rocks. We talked more about this in a previous PowerPoint slide. And the lower crust is more akin to basalt. We talked about that as well. Average density is about 2.7 grams per cubic centimeter and is up to about 4 billion years old. Oceanic crust is mostly basaltic rock, has a density of about 3.0 grams per cubic centimeter, so you can tell it's a little bit more dense than continental crust. And it's younger, about 800 million years less than the continental crust. And how do we know this? By studying earthquake waves, we can determine this. So velocity of a seismic wave increases abruptly below 50 kilometers of depth. And we'll talk more about these P and S seismic wave paths as we get to earthquakes in this unit. So we'll get into plate tectonic boundaries now. We have divergent plate boundaries, which is essentially where the plates move apart, convergent, where two plates move together, and transform, where plates grind past each other without destruction of the lithosphere. I'll go over this in class, but I do this as a hand signal as well. So when your hands come together, that would be convergent. As they move apart, that's divergent. And as they move past each other, you can consider that transform or strike slip. So divergent plate boundaries. Let me move up here. They are oceanic ridges and seafloor spreadings where we see these for the most part. Oceanic ridges are continuous elevated zones on the ocean floor of all major ocean basins. The rifts at the crest of the ridges represent diverging plate boundaries, meaning that at the ridges or at the chains of mountains underneath there, they are moving apart. So rift valleys are deep faulted structures along the axis of diverging plate boundaries that can develop on the seafloor or on land. And once again, we talk about this concept of seafloor spreading, which produces new oceanic lithosphere. We can also have continental rifts. So when spreading occurs, center develops when a continental landmass may split into two or more smaller segments and form a rift, such as the Great Rift Valley. You can see that here. So at a convergent boundary, a subsuction zone occurs when an oceanic plate is forced down into the mantle beneath the second plate. So basically, it moves down underneath. Okay. The denser oceanic slab sinks into the asthenosphere because it's more dense. Pockets of magma develop and rise, and volcanic arcs are created. And this is between an oceanic and a continental converging plate boundary. And for example, you can see all types here. Between an oceanic and oceanic converging boundary, you see two oceanic slabs converge and one descends beneath the other. It can create volcanic island arcs. And this kind of boundary often forms volcanoes on the ocean floor. You can see types here. Between a continental and continental boundary are when subducting plates contain two continental materials, two continents collide. So they come together. This kind of boundary can produce mountains. So as they come up, they'll form mountains. Getting into a transform fault boundary here, and I'll move down so you can see it here. At a transform fault boundary, plates grind past one another without destroying the lithosphere. And at transform faults, most join two segments of a mid-ocean ridge, so they'll move past each other, or for example, like this. And at the time of formation, they are roughly parallel in the direction of plate movement, and they aid in movement of oceanic crust materials. So as they move past each other, they'll help to move those oceanic materials. Here you can see the collision of India and Asia, which forms the Himalayas, and I'll put these videos on the website as well. That's all for these notes.